If you want, I'll be honest. What you call laziness is not laziness. What you call weakness is not weakness. What you call a lack of motivation is not a lack of motivation. It's just the work of your brain. Honest, predictable, old as nature itself. The brain is not built for great purposes, not built for growth. You are not made for the dream that you secretly keep in your heart. The brain is designed for you to survive, and everything that requires energy causes resistance. Any change, any development, any new habit, any important task. You can dream of a new standard of living, about the power, about money, about health, about another version of yourself. But the brain wants only one thing, that everything remains as it is. And when you realize this, your life begins to change, because the illusion that something is wrong with you ceases to exist. You're all right. Your brain is just doing its job. But here's what's amazing. The brain can be fooled, and in such a way that he will start pushing you forward on his own, not to slow down, but to support, not to shut out the new, but to lead there. And now, I'll show you how it works. Before we continue, subscribe and like it. The more you listen to such discussions, the deeper your condition begins to work. And the state is the foundation of any transformation. Imagine a man, let's call him Andre. He wants a lot of things, wants a slim body, he wants good money, he wants a calm head, he wants a high level of energy. Nothing unusual, almost everyone has such desires. And Andre always starts something, buys a subscription, writes plans, downloads courses, enrolls in training, planning. He watches motivational videos. But a week passes and everything collapses. More precisely, it does not collapse, but cools down. Slow but guaranteed. And one day Andre asks himself, why do I want a lot and do little? Why is my action less than my dreams? Why do I know what needs to be done with my mind, but I can't bring myself to? Why do I feel like I can do more, but I'm not doing it? And this is a question for millions of people. But the answer is always the same, because the brain doesn't like complicated things. It doesn't matter who you are, a man or a woman, mature or young, with or without experience. The brains of all people are arranged in the same way, but those who have learned to deceive him live differently. And now I will reveal how they do it. There is an ancient center inside the brain that is responsible for safety. He lives for millions of years, and he has a simple setup. Everything unknown is dangerous, everything new requires energy. Anything complicated should be avoided. This mechanism protected our ancestors. But today, he has become our brake. That's why it can be difficult for you to start, and difficult for you to continue, and even more difficult for you to finish. The brain doesn't see the difference between running in the morning, learning English, starting a new business, earning more, getting in shape, moving out, getting out of a toxic relationship, making videos, doing real estate. It's just unknown to him, which means it's dangerous. So, put it off, wait it out, do something simpler. And while you're fighting with yourself, your brain is just trying to protect you. He's not the enemy, he's a system, but the system can be reconfigured. This is one of the most powerful ways to trick the brain. Nobody makes it because it seems too simple, but it changes everything. When you encounter something difficult, your brain sees a huge wall in front of you. For example, you want to write a book, or start a business, or launch YouTube, or make a meal plan, or run 5 kilometers. This is a gigantic task for the brain. It takes effort, so she's dangerous. How to trick the brain. You need to open a small window. Turn an action into one so small that it does not cause protection. Not to write a book, but to open a document. Not to start a business, but to write down one idea. Do not start the channel, but take 20 seconds of video. Don't run 5 kilometers, but go outside in sneakers. Not to learn English, but to learn one word. And do you know what's going on? The brain relaxes, because there is no huge volume hanging over it. He takes a step, and after the step, I want to do the second one. And the second one is no longer a struggle, but inertia. It's like opening a door. After the first light action, the space begins to move. You might think, so what? Which will give me 2 minutes. That one action will give me. What a small step will give me. But it's not about the step. It's about switching states. The brain works on the principle that movement creates motivation, not the other way around. When you start small, dopamine is released in the brain, and it forms a chain. Movement and pleasure. And after 2 weeks, the brain begins to look for this pleasure on its own. Complicated things stop being complicated. They become habitual, and the usual is safe. And it's nice to be safe. That's the whole secret. Complex actions do not require willpower, but the right energy. Your condition is the key. If you do something with tension, the brain activates a blockage. If you do it with interest, the brain turns on. If you do it with ease, the brain creates stable neural circuits. If you do it with inspiration, then the brain starts wanting repetitions. That's why it's important not to force yourself, but to tune in. Your brain doesn't work through pressure and through the condition. There is also a method that almost no one uses, but it works like a Swiss watch. It's called pleasant anchoring. The bottom line is this: connect a complex action with something you love. For example, do important tasks with your favorite music or drink delicious tea while working. Turn on a beautiful light and create a cozy table. And after the action, allow yourself a little pleasure. Put a check mark on your calendar and thank yourself. The brain begins to associate a complex action with pleasure, and he'll pull you there himself. This is the moment when difficult things become easy and necessary. Things become pleasant. Your big goals scare the brain. He sees a big target as a threat because it requires effort, time, resources, responsibility, and change. Therefore, the brain does everything to leave you in a zone where it is clear, understandable, familiar, and safe. How to cheat. Stop thinking about the goal and start thinking about a little action today. There are no big goals. There are only small steps that lead to it. When you do a small action, you're not just fooling the brain. You're setting up reality. Intention plus a small action creates the effect of movement. Space responds. Events are starting to take shape. You start to notice the possibilities. You're becoming more attentive to the signs. You're starting to see the way. Complex things become not tasks, but processes, and the brain stops resisting because you're already inside the flow. When a person says, "I can't change anything," it's always not true, because the brain is not concrete, it is plastic. It changes every second. It forms new connections when you do new things. He erases the old ways if you stop using them. But there is one but. In order for a neural circuit to collapse or be created, a state is needed, not an effort, not pressure, and a special inner state, which I will now explain. You've noticed that sometimes you do everything right, but it's like there's a wall inside. You turn on the camera, but you can't record it. You sit down to write a text, but you look into the void. Do you know that you need to take action, but you physically resist? This is not a whim, and not a character. This is a lockdown. The block occurs when the brain associates an action with a negative experience, when you tried it once and it was uncomfortable, scary, difficult, too energy-consuming. And now the brain has remembered that it does not bring pleasure. This is dangerous and should be avoided. Every time you try to do it again, your brain turns on its defenses. It's like a little inner guardian that says, "Don't touch it, it was bad there." And to break this block, you don't need to force yourself, but rather change the state in which you approach action. The context is the environment, and the brain is highly dependent on the environment. If you are used to working in the same place, and there you have an association of hard, the brain will no longer give you productivity. But if you just change the environment, even a little bit, the chain breaks. Try to work in another corner of the room. Change the lighting, change the music, change the pose. Go out to the cafe, change the background for recording, change the time of day. You'll be surprised how the brain reacts to a change of context, as if the action is new. This is an easy way to bypass the old locks. There is a level of consciousness that is higher than the brain. This is the observer. He appears in moments of silence when you don't react to thoughts, but just notice them. An observer is someone who can tell, it's just a thought. It doesn't define my actions. When the observer is turned on, the brain stops commanding. He becomes a tool, not a master. Developing an observer is simple. 2 deep breaths, 1 minute of silence, conscious movement, pause before action. Focus on the body. When you turn on the observer, you can see where your brain is sabotaging you, where you are getting scared, where you are running, where you are hiding, where avoidance is. And at that moment, a choice appears. You can act despite the automatism. This is the first step towards freedom. Imagine a woman. Her name is Svetlana. She wants to start her own business. I have an idea. There is a desire. There is inspiration. But every time she sits down to take the first step, anxiety covers her. My head feels heavy. Fatigue appears. She starts flipping through her phone. Drink tea, take care of the house. Anything but what's important. This is not laziness. It's fear. It is a memory of past experiences where her dreams were associated with pain or disappointment. Svetlana is fighting. She forces herself. She scolds herself. She's trying to push, and it's only getting worse. And then she does one simple thing. He spends 5 minutes every day on his idea, no more. I wrote down one thought, and I'm done. I opened the document and closed it. I wrote 3 lines. That's enough. A week has passed. The fear is gone. The heaviness disappeared. There was excitement. 2 weeks and she's already working by the hour. The condition is mild. The brain stopped perceiving the action as a threat. A month later, she launches her project. Not by force, not through struggle, and through small steps that deceived the fear system. This happens every day to thousands of people who have figured out how the brain works. It seems to a person, I'm afraid to start because of the scale. But this is not the case. The brain doesn't think in terms of scale, he thinks in threats. If the task is too big, the brain believes that there is a lot of uncertainty, and uncertainty is a danger. And the bigger the goal, the more your brain will protect you. Therefore, the rule is, the goal must be big, but the step is microscopic. Have a big dream, do the small things. The brain has a reward system. It works on the principle that it will be pleasant to do something. If not, it will be neutral. But for most people, the system works the other way around. Complicated things are unpleasant. A light one feels good. This chain needs to be deployed. There are 3 ways. There is only one way. Create mini wins. After any action, even the smallest one, give your brain the signal, we won. It can be a check mark, a feeling, a smile, the word eat, a delayed bonus, 5 seconds of rest. It seems like a small thing, but the brain forms a connection between action and pleasure. Method 2. Don't punish yourself for mistakes. If you haven't done anything for one day, don't blame yourself. Don't say, I failed. Just go back to the step. When a person scolds himself, the brain creates a connection, and this is stress. And when you accept a mistake calmly, the brain remains safe, and you can continue. Method 3. Encourage the process, not the result. Don't say, I want to finish it. Say, I want to feel the movement. A process is a movement. The result is pressure, and pressure breaks motivation. Movement creates it. Before an important action, ask yourself 3 questions. What do I feel? What do I want to feel? What do I need to do to switch to a new state? For example, I feel anxious. I want peace of mind. I need to drink water, take a breath, build a small step. You're moving yourself from a state of fear to a state of action, and the brain stops defending itself. The body is a bridge. Through the body, you can change the state of the brain. If it's difficult to act, change your breathing, posture, and pace of movement. For example, sit up straight, lift your chin, take a deep breath, exhale slowly, lower your shoulders. The body sends a signal that there is no danger and you can act. And the brain relaxes. You can tell yourself 1,000 times, I need to, I have to, I have to. The brain does not hear these phrases. He only hears the emotions behind the words. If the emotion is fear, then the brain will avoid it. If an emotion is an interest, then the brain will move. If the emotion is calmness, then the brain will work. You don't need to convince your brain with words. He needs a different state. When the state changes, the behavior changes. Motivation does not disappear. She just goes into stealth mode. To get her back, take away the pressure, slow down the step, find one small action that gives energy, praise yourself for the movement. Take a break. If you're tired, tell yourself one phrase, I keep going. The brain doesn't require big wins. He needs a rhythm. Rhythm is stronger than motivation. Many people think that huge efforts are needed for change, but effort only gives a flash. And the real transformation begins when you change who you think you are, because a person always acts in accordance with the image of himself. If the I can't belief lives inside, the brain will block any action. If you hear, I'm not the right person inside, your brain will lead you into weakness. If there is a phrase inside, I'm trying, but it's difficult for me, the brain makes it really difficult. The brain is honest. He just executes the command, even if the command is unconscious. And now, we will change the team, not by effort, not by force, not by persuasion, and through a fortune and a new identity. Everyone lives inside a story about themselves. This story has been building up over the years, from childhood, from other people's words, from their own failures, from the expectations of others, from pain, from experience, from disappointment. And this story quietly says who you are, what you can do, what you can't do, what you deserve, what is available to you, what you can approach, and what you need to avoid. As long as the story doesn't change, then the actions will remain the same. That's why people can listen to motivation, read books, watch videos, but life doesn't change. The story remains the same. In order for the brain to start loving complex things, you need to become a different person. Not in the sense of changing yourself, but in the sense of changing your self-image. There is a method that is used by people who are really changing their lives. It's called a silent identity change. It works like this. You don't have to say, I'm going to be different. You have to say, what if I'm already different? Not tomorrow, not later, and now. In this moment, ask yourself how a person who already knows how to do difficult things would act. How would he think? The way he would move? How would he talk? Whatever he chooses. Your brain will begin to adjust to this image, because matching is important to the brain. He doesn't like contradictions. If the self-image has changed, the brain will change its actions. And it works much more than any motivation. Willpower is a struggle. Intention is direction. When you do something by willpower, you go against yourself. When you do this through intention, you come from yourself. The difference is huge. Willpower is running out. The intention is not. Intention is a state of inner clarity. It's a quiet, I choose this. No pressure without fear, without expectations. When you do a complex action out of intention rather than willpower, the brain doesn't resist. He accepts the command because an intention is not an order, it's a vibration. There is one pattern that all people who follow the path of development notice. When you take a step, even the smallest one, the space opens up. You're starting to see the signs. You meet the right people. You hear the right phrases. You're in the right place at the right moment. You get answers. It's like you're walking into another line of life. It's not magic. This is an attention setting. When you take a step, your brain and energy change frequency and reality responds. That's why movement is important. Not fast, not strong, not perfect. And the movement, even a small one, the brain can resist. But space always helps the one who takes a step. Procrastination is not laziness. This is the gap between the state and the task. When the condition is lower than the task, avoidance begins. To get out of procrastination, you need to take 3 steps. The first step, reduce the task. Make it so small that the brain doesn't feel threatened. Step 2, raise the condition. 5 minutes of silence. Take a deep breath, a short walk, water, a little ritual. It all raises energy. Step 3, consolidate the action. Tell yourself, I made my move. This creates a chain. The chain creates a habit. Habit creates results. Procrastination is not your weakness. This is an incorrect setting, and it can be changed. There is one secret that those who have become stronger know. The brain likes repetition. Not easy, not motivation, not inspiration. Repetition. If you repeat an action regularly, your brain stops perceiving it as difficult. He considers it the norm, the mundane, something natural. And that's when you realize that you're doing something that previously seemed impossible, because the action stopped being complicated and became mine. Every time you find it difficult to start, do one thing. Set a timer for 30 seconds and tell yourself, I'm just doing 30 seconds. This completely turns off the inner critic. The brain relaxes, and often the stream turns on in 30 seconds. And you keep going. This technique is used by athletes, authors, entrepreneurs, psychologists, and people who live consciously. It seems primitive, but it programs the brain for action. You can't beat the brain. He's older than you, stronger than you, and faster than you. But you can become his partner, not to force, but to direct. Not to fight, but to lead away. Not to break it, but to redirect it. Every time the brain says scary, it's hard. Later, tell him, we're doing it small, we're doing it safely, we're doing it calmly. You will see that the resistance will decrease. You will enter the stream, and the action will become natural. The deepest change happens when you stop waiting for inspiration, when action becomes a part of your energy, when you don't do it because you have to, but because it's part of your lifeline. Difficult things become easy when you give up perfectionism, take away the pressure, take a small step, raise your condition, trick your brain, and set your intention. Then you become a person who finds it easy. Not because life has become easier, it's because you become different. If you want to live in a state where action is a natural flow, not a struggle, remember one thing. Your brain is just a tool, and it's waiting for you to set it up, not by force, and through the condition, not through pressure, but through intention, not through struggle, and through a gentle internal restructuring. If you want more videos about the state, energy, intention, strength, and laws of inner reality, please like and subscribe. Here I talk about what helps not just to do things, but to live differently, and to see how reality adjusts to your inner frequency.